The marketplace theft. The twin suns hung high over the dusty skyport of Krillon 9. Heat waves shimmered on the stone streets. Crowds moved between colorful tents and stalls in the open marketplace, where traders shouted in many languages. Food, smells floated in the air. Spiced meats, roasted roots, and baked alien fruits. Jari stood in the middle of the crowd, holding her son's tiny hand. She looked weak. Her long robe was dirty, torn at the bottom. Her skin, once bright blue, had turned pale. Her eyes were hollow and her stomach growled loudly. But she didn't care about herself. She looked down at her son, Veen. Veen was no more than 5 cycles old. His small frame shook in the heat. His lips were dry and his legs wobbled. He hadn't eaten in 2 days. His head leaned against her leg. "Mom," he whispered. "I'm hungry." Jari closed her eyes tightly. She had no money, not a single credit. Her last attempt to beg for food had ended with angry words and a kick to her side. She looked around the market again. Then she saw it. On a wooden table stacked neatly, fresh bread. Golden. Warm. The smell made her mouth water. The vendor was busy arguing with another customer, his back turned. Her heart pounded. She had never stolen before. But her child was dying. She bent down to Veen. "Stay close to me," she said softly. Then she took a deep breath and ran forward. With one swift motion, she grabbed a loaf of bread and turned. "Hey!" the vendor shouted behind her. "Thief!" Jari ran, holding the bread tight in one hand, Veen's hand in the other. People shouted. Some stepped aside. Others tried to grab her. She ran as fast as her weak legs could move, pushing through the crowd. Her vision blurred. The sun hit her face like fire. Her feet stumbled on a rock. She gasped for breath. Her heart beat wildly. Veen tripped once, but she pulled him back up. But her strength was gone. Suddenly, she fell. She crashed to the ground hard, scraping her hands on the rough road. The bread rolled away into the dust. Veen cried out beside her. Get up, he whimpered, shaking her arm. But she couldn't move. She coughed, then whispered in a broken voice, "Please, my child. He's hungry." Footsteps approached, heavy boots. Jari didn't look up. She expected to be kicked or dragged to the enforcers. Maybe they would take her away from Veen forever. But instead, someone knelt beside her. It was a human, tall, with brown skin and rough hands. His clothes were dusty, tools hanging from his belt. His name was John. He looked at her, then at the boy. The crowd gathered. Whispers filled the air. She tried to steal. "Filthy alien. Let the guards take her." John didn't listen. He picked up the bread from the dust and broke it into 2 halves. He gave one half to the boy. Veen grabbed it with both hands and began eating quickly, tears falling from his wide eyes. John turned to the woman. "You okay?" he asked softly. Jari blinked. She tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. She nodded, slowly. "Can you stand?" he asked again. She shook her head. So John stood up and gently picked her up in his arms. She was light, almost weightless. Gasps came from the crowd. "You're helping her? She's a thief." But John ignored them. He looked at the child. "Come on, buddy," he said. "Follow me." The boy, still holding his half of the bread, stood up and walked behind them. No one stopped them. Some stared. Some muttered. But no one dared touch the human. John took them away from the market, away from the noise. Down the hill, past the edge of the city, toward the old junkyard where he worked and lived. Jari's eyes closed. Her breathing slowed, but her fingers still gripped his shirt, as if to say, "Thank you." The human's choice. The sky over the junkyard was a pale orange as evening came. Metal scraps lay scattered across the dirt, silent except for the soft wind. John walked carefully, holding the alien mother in his arms. Behind him, little Veen followed, still chewing the last bit of bread with wide eyes. John opened the old metal door of his workshop and stepped inside. The place smelled of oil and rust. Tools hung on the walls and half-built machines sat in the corners. It wasn't clean, but it was safe. He placed Jari gently on a long bench and found a thin blanket to cover her. She was still unconscious, but her breathing had calmed. Veen stood nearby, hugging the loaf tightly to his chest. Is she okay?" he asked in a quiet voice. John looked at him and nodded. "She'll be all right, just tired and hungry." He filled a dented cup with water from his purifier and handed it to the boy. Veen drank fast, like he hadn't seen clean water in days. John sat down on a stool and sighed. He looked at Jari again. Her face was thin, cheeks hollow. Her hands were bruised. She didn't look dangerous. She looked broken. Outside the shop, the city was not quiet anymore. In the center of the marketplace, a group of local guards stood with a tall, armored alien in dark blue robes. His face was hidden under a mask, and his voice was cold. "Which way did she run?" he asked. "Down the south path toward the junkyards," one of the guards replied. The masked figure nodded. "Alert the patrols. She must not escape again." Back in the workshop, Jari slowly opened her eyes. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The smell was different. For a second she panicked, then she felt the blanket and heard a small voice. "Mom?" She turned her head and saw Veen beside her, smiling. His lips had color again, his eyes had light. "I had bread and water. The human gave it." Jari blinked. Her mind was slow, confused. Then she remembered. The marketplace, the bread, falling, and the human. John stood nearby, watching her. "You're safe here," he said. "You passed out. I carried you." Jari tried to sit up. "Why?" she asked weakly. "Why help me?" John shrugged. "Because your child was starving, and you looked like you'd rather die than let him go hungry." Jari looked down. Her hands shook. "I didn't want to steal, but I had no choice." "I know," he said. "You did what a mother had to do." She looked at him again, confused. Most humans avoided her kind. Many feared them. Some hated them. But this one was different. He had rough hands, but kind eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, while Jari rested, John cooked some leftover stew and gave the rest to Vin. He smiled as the boy ate, but Jari couldn't sleep. Her body trembled, not from hunger, but from fear. She pulled the blanket tighter and looked out the window. Red lights flickered far off in the sky. She had seen those lights before. Patrol drones. They were searching. When John returned to check on her, he noticed her fear. "Are they looking for you?" he asked softly. Jari didn't answer at first. Then, in a low voice, she said, "Yes." "Why? What did you do?" She looked at him, and for the first time, there was a sharp glint in her eyes. "Nothing," she said, "except escape." "Escape? What?" Jari hesitated. Her hand moved to Veen's shoulder, protective. "I'll tell you everything," she whispered. "But not tonight, not in front of him." John nodded. "All right, you can stay here for now. No one will find you here. The scanners don't work this far out." Jari gave him a small, tired smile. "You're not like the others." John looked away, slightly embarrassed. "I just do what feels right." Outside, the wind picked up, and somewhere, in the darkness, something was watching the shack. A cloaked figure stood on the hill, eyes glowing faintly through the lenses of a visor. The search had begun. Shelter in the outskirts. The night wrapped the junkyard in silence. Only the soft hum of broken machines echoed faintly inside John's small workshop. Sparks flew now and then as his old robot arm tried to weld two rusty parts together. The stars above blinked through the cracked roof panels. Jari sat on a pile of worn blankets, holding her child close. Veen had finally fallen asleep, his tiny hand curled around a metal nut like it was a toy. Jari gently brushed his silver hair, away from his eyes and sighed. She looked around the workshop, strange tools, blinking consoles, and mechanical arms. To her, It all felt like another world. She was used to running, hiding, sleeping on cold rocks. But now, there was warmth. For one night at least. John was at his workbench fixing a power converter. He didn't say much, but his actions spoke louder than words. He had made tea, bitter, but warm. He had handed her a small towel to wash, and he had given her silence, without judgment. Finally, Jari broke that silence. "This place emits quiet," she said softly. John looked up. "Too quiet sometimes." "You live here alone?" "Yeah, easier that way." Jari nodded. "Lonely." He paused for a moment, then answered, "Less painful." Jari didn't ask more. She understood. Pain had its own language, and she spoke it fluently. As the hours passed, John noticed how Jari's eyes always moved, scanning the doors, the windows, the shadows. "Who's chasing you?" he finally asked. Jari's voice dropped low. "They're called enforcers, private ones, not local guards. They work for powerful people, people who don't like when someone disappears from their hands." John leaned back in his chair. "You were a prisoner." Jari looked down. Her fingers tightened on Veen's shoulder. "No. Worse. I was property." John's eyes narrowed. He didn't interrupt. "They used me for my bloodline," she continued. "For experiments, breeding charts, genetics. They made promises, and then chains. I escaped with Veen 6 months ago." John looked at the sleeping boy. "Is he special?" Jari nodded. "Very. That's why they want him back." Suddenly, the motion sensor at the gate blinked. John stood up quietly and checked the screen. A figure was outside the fence, not moving, just standing. Jari saw his face tighten. "Someone found us." John nodded. Could just be a scavenger. But even he didn't believe that. He moved to the side wall and pulled a rusty panel aside, revealing a hidden trapdoor. "Go," he said quickly. "There's a storage bunker beneath. Stay quiet. Don't open it unless it's me." Jari didn't waste time. She picked up Veen and disappeared into the darkness below. John covered the door just as the knock came. Bang, bang, bang. "Open up," a deep voice ordered. "This is Sector Patrol routine search." John took a deep breath and opened the door halfway. "What's this about?" A tall alien in dark armor stood outside. His helmet covered his eyes, but a scanner flickered red across John's face. "We're searching for fugitives, a female of Zenthian bloodline and a child." John scratched his head. "I'm the only one here, officer. Just me and my metal friends." The soldier stepped forward. "Mind if I check inside?" John blocked the door with his body. "Unless you've got a warrant, I do mind." There was a pause. Then the soldier said, "We'll be back. With the proper documents." He turned and walked away, boots thudding in the dust. But he spoke something into his comm as he disappeared. John locked the door and let out a breath. "We don't have much time," he whispered to himself. An hour later, Jari climbed back out, her face pale. "You think they'll come back?" John nodded. "With more men." Jari looked down. "Then we should leave." John looked at her, tired, scared, determined. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then he said, "There's an old sand runner in the back. If I can fix the fuel drive, I can get you past the south ridge. No scanners there." Jari touched his arm. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." John looked her straight in the eyes. "Because no one helped me when I needed it." Outside, beyond the hills, the enforcers set up a base camp, and deep in the shadows, another figure watched it all, a silent informant waiting for the right time to betray. The secret she carries. By morning, the desert winds had calmed, but tension inside the junkyard workshop had grown thicker. John was already working on the old sand runner. Its engine panels were open, and sparks flew as he tried to rewire the burned-out power cell. Inside, Jari sat by the metal table, her son curled up beside her. Veen was resting now, his breathing steady. She watched John through the dusty glass window, her mind battling between fear and hope. He had shown her kindness, a rare thing, but kindness often came with a price, or questions. Jari knew it was time. When John came inside wiping sweat from his forehead, she stood. "You asked me yesterday," she said, voice soft but serious. "Why they want Veen. I will tell you, now." John set down his tools and nodded, saying nothing. Jari looked down at her child, then back at the human. "I was not just property, I was chosen." Her story began on a far-off star station known as Vexari Core, a facility hidden in orbit behind a dying red moon. There, alien scientists experimented with rare bloodlines. They studied old royal DNA, mixing and splicing it, to recreate ancient traits lost to war. Jari had been taken there after her planet was annexed. She was told she carried genetic memory, a dormant code from a forgotten royal race. Not a queen, but a living puzzle piece of lost power. They paired her with selected males. Most children didn't survive, but one did. Veen, and he was not ordinary. "When Veen was born," she said slowly, "he lit up the machines around us. They responded to him, opened to his touch. Doors, systems, ancient cores that never worked before. They said his DNA carried a signal, a key." John raised an eyebrow. "To what?" Jari shook her head. "They never told me. But I heard whispers. Of a vault. Of a royal weapon. Maybe even a ship." John crossed his arms. "And now they want the boy back to use him." Jari nodded. "Not as a prince, not even as a person, just as a tool." John looked at the sleeping child. He looked peaceful, too small to carry any of that burden. "He's just a kid," John muttered. Jari's voice turned firm. "But he's also my son, and I will die before I let them take him again." Just then, the warning sensor beeped, twice. Someone was near. John ran to the monitor. A drone hovered above the junkyard fence, scanning. Jari rushed to the other side of the workshop and pulled Veen into her arms. She crouched behind metal crates as the hum of the drone grew louder. John grabbed his plasma cutter. He didn't aim it, not yet, but he kept it close. The drone floated for a minute, scanning heat signatures. But John's place was a maze of junk and heat traps. He had built it that way on purpose. After a while, the drone beeped and flew away. Jari let out a shaky breath. John relaxed slightly. "We need to move," he said. "Soon." That evening, while Jari helped prepare a small meal from nutrient packs, Veen walked around curiously, touching metal parts and blinking devices. Suddenly, a dead console on the wall flickered to life as the boy passed by. John turned sharply. "Did he touch that?" Jari nodded slowly. "It started again. It happens more often now." John checked the console. "It's not even wired up. That thing's been dead for 2 years. Veen looked up and smiled shyly. "Did I break it?" "No, kid," John whispered. "You brought it back." Jari stepped forward. "This is why they'll never stop hunting us." John looked between the mother, the boy, and the flickering screen. He knew then. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This child might change everything, and he had just made himself part of it. Far away, in a high-security base at the edge of the city, a message was sent through secure channels. Subject located. Prepare containment team. And in the shadows of that base, a new plan was forming, one that didn't involve capturing the child, but using the human to bring him in. The search begins. Krellin 9's morning came with thick clouds and restless winds. The air was dry, but it carried the scent of metal and tension. Inside the junkyard, John double-checked the Sandrunner's fuel core. Sparks jumped again from the engine, but this time it purred with power. It was almost ready, but time was running out. Inside the workshop, Jari packed a small bundle of food and blankets. Her hands moved fast, but her eyes kept glancing toward the door. Veen sat quietly, playing with a bent metal gear, unaware of the danger. Jari knelt beside him. Veen, when we leave, you must stay quiet. Do you understand? The boy nodded, sensing his mother's worry. John stepped in, wiping his hands. It's done. The runner should get us to the southern hills. After that, we'll need to move on foot. I've marked a cave where scanners don't reach. Jari looked at him. You're sure about helping us? John didn't hesitate. Yeah, you don't leave a kid behind ever. But before they could move, a faint buzz filled the air. John froze. Then came the sound of engines. Dozens. He ran to the roof hatch and peeked out with his binoculars. Convoy of black transport crafts was coming. Enforcer drones circled above them like birds ready to dive. They're here, he whispered. Too fast. Someone tipped them off. At the edge of the junkyard, the enforcer leader stood tall in a black coat. His helmet reflected the sky, but his voice was clear. Thermal signature confirmed. They're inside. The officers stepped forward. Sir, should we engage? The leader raised his hand. No. Wait. The human may still cooperate. Back in the workshop, John opened a hidden crate and pulled out a compact energy rifle. Jari looked at him, surprised. You used to be a soldier? He nodded. A long time ago. Earth sent me to fix things. War broke them first. Jari picked up her son and wrapped him in a cloth. Then we won't make it through that many. John handed her a small tracker. Maybe we won't. Fight our way out. But we'll run smart. This will guide you to the canyon caves. I'll stall them. Jari grabbed his arm. No, you'll die. John looked her in the eyes. Better I stay behind than they get him. Veen reached out and tugged John's shirt. Are you coming with us? John knelt down, smiled, and said, I'll meet you there, I promise. Outside, enforcers surrounded the fence. Suddenly the ground shook. An explosion tore through a wall of scrap. Flames shot up and metal rained down. A decoy blast. The enforcers rushed toward the smoke. John opened the back door. Go now, he shouted. Jari ran, holding Veen close, ducking behind wrecked vehicles and crates. Dust and fire masked their path. She didn't look back, but Veen did. He saw John disappear into the firelight. Inside the workshop, John stood with the energy rifle in hand. The main gate burst open. The enforcer leader walked in, calm and unhurried. Human, he said. This isn't your concern. Give them to us. You'll be rewarded. John stepped forward. You think I care about credits? The enforcer's visor blinked red. Then you'll die for nothing. John fired first. The battle was short, but loud. Drones exploded. Sparks flew. Walls cracked. But John knew he couldn't win. He only needed time. Jari reached the canyon's edge. Her heart pounded as she climbed over the rocky path with Veen. They ducked into the hidden entrance of a narrow cave, just as scanner lights passed above them. Inside the cool shadows, she collapsed against the stone wall, holding her son tightly. Tears filled her eyes, but not for herself, for the man who stayed behind. Back at the junkyard, smoke still rose. John lay among broken metal and burning wires. His arm was cut, his gun empty. The enforcer leader stood over him. You fought hard. For someone not of your kind. John chuckled weakly. You don't know humans very well. The enforcer turned away and activated a comm link. They've escaped. A cold reply came. Then track them. The child must not reach the vault. High above, an orbiting satellite shifted its lens. It locked onto a faint heat trail in the canyon. The hunt had just begun, and the galaxy's most valuable secret was running in the arms of a mother. The escape plan. The canyon winds howled between sharp rocks and narrow paths. Jari moved fast, holding Veen close against her chest. Her feet were cut, her hands trembling, but she didn't stop. Every sound behind her felt like footsteps. Every breeze felt like danger. The narrow cave ahead glowed faintly. Inside, hidden behind a natural stone curtain, was an ancient mining tunnel long abandoned by both humans and aliens. She stepped in. Silence. Safe. For now. John's voice still echoed. In her memory, this tracker will lead you to the canyon caves. I'll stall them. He had kept his word. The explosion, the smoke, it had worked. They had escaped. But at what cost? Jari knelt and laid Veen gently on the stone floor. The boy had fallen asleep in her arms. His face looked peaceful, almost unaware of the galaxy chasing him. She brushed his hair, then activated the tracker John gave her, a blinking red dot, and a recorded message. John's voice came through, rough but calm. If you're hearing this, it means you made it. Good. The tunnel you're in leads to an old supply post. I've stored rations and a solar pack inside. It's not much, but enough to survive for a few days. After that, head east. Past the Black Ridge, you'll find an old Earth settlement. Ask for a woman named Reyna. She owes me. She'll hide you. Jari closed her eyes. You thought of everything, didn't you, John? Back at the junkyard, the Enforcer leader stood among the ruins. Fire still burned. Broken drones sparked around him. His helmet cracked on one side, but his face was still hidden. He stared at a small piece of cloth caught on a nail, silver thread, the child's blanket. They passed through here, he said coldly. But they had help. His second in command, a tall insectoid alien, stepped forward. The human should have surrendered. The Enforcer touched the burn mark on his armor. He didn't. That makes him dangerous. A new drone floated down, scanning the sand. It beeped. Track found. Direction, East Ridge. Heat trail, child confirmed. The Enforcer turned. Send out Hunter-class units. No mistakes. I want the child alive. The mother, irrelevant. Meanwhile, Jari had reached the far end of the tunnel. The path opened into a hidden cave, a small shelter built into rock. Old crates, dusty supplies, and solar heaters lined the walls. As promised, John had left her what they needed. She opened a crate, food packs, water tubes, even a tiny energy blanket for Veen, and something more, a small folded note. If you ever reach safety, tell the boy who he is. Tell him he's not just a survivor. He's the key to something bigger. But more than that, he's someone worth protecting. And you were never alone. Tears welled in her eyes again. Jari placed the note in her satchel and began preparing a warm drink for Veen. But as she lit the heater, the air changed. Soft clicking sound, metal scraping stone. Her hand froze. She turned slowly toward the tunnel entrance and saw red eyes in the dark. 2 hunter drones crawled out of the tunnel, slim, spider-like, and deadly. Their limbs made no sound as they moved. They had found them. Jari grabbed Veen and dashed behind a rock slab. The first drone fired. A laser sliced through the air, missing her by inches. Stone burst behind her, spraying dust. She held Veen tight. Whispering, "Don't make a sound," the second drone scanned the room. A red light swept over the walls. It beeped. Then, it stopped. It had found the child's warmth. Jari had seconds. Her eyes darted around. On the shelf, a broken mining blaster, maybe useless, maybe not. She dove for it. The drone spun. She rolled and aimed, pulled the trigger. Nothing. Then, click, boom. A burst of blue fire hit the drone dead on, throwing it into the wall in pieces. The second drone shrieked and leapt, but Jari had already moved, grabbing a crowbar and slamming it into its sensor. Sparks flew. The drone twitched, legs spasming, then fell dead. Silence returned. Veen peeked out from behind the rocks. "Mom, are they gone?" Jari sat on the floor, breathless. For now, yes. She looked at the broken drones. The Enforcers had found them. She knew more would come. They couldn't stay here. Far above the ridge, hidden by clouds, a satellite recorded it all. Data streamed across screens, and in a dark chamber of the Dominions, Warship, the High Director of Genetics, leaned forward. "So the boy lives, and the human has given them hope." He smiled coldly. "Then we must take it back." The royal truth. The sun was still hiding behind the dark clouds when Jari stepped out of the cave with Veen wrapped in her arms. She wore a weathered cloak and had a small bag on her back. Every bone in her body ached, but her steps were firm. They had to keep moving. She looked out across the dry valley below, the path toward the old Earth settlement John had spoken of. The ridge was steep, but beyond it was a new chance, a life free from hunting, hiding, and fear. But deep down she knew the truth. The closer they got to safety, the harder the enemy would fight. Back in orbit above Kralon 9, a sleek command ship hovered silently like a black shadow. Inside, the Dominion's High Director stood before a large projection. The data from the hunter drone streamed in. He zoomed in on the child's face. There was no doubt. "That's the heir," he whispered. Beside him, an elder priestess with white eyes and silver tattoos frowned. "We thought the bloodline was extinct." The director turned slowly. It nearly was, until one human mechanic ruined everything. He activated the control panel. "Dispatch the sentinel. Bring me the child. Now." On the surface, Jari and Veen reached the top of the ridge. The wind howled, but the view was clear now. A small distant tower stood beyond the canyon. Metal panels, smoke trails, solar fences, the Earth settlement. Jari's knees weakened, but then her breath caught. A ship appeared in the sky. Not like the Enforcer transports. This one was ancient. Black gold plating curved like a blade, and it bore a symbol Jari had seen only once before, on the walls of Vexari Core, a royal emblem. The ship didn't attack. It hovered, then slowly descended into the canyon and landed. Jari stepped in front of her child, ready to run again. But the ship's door opened. No weapons fired. No soldiers marched. Instead, a glowing drone floated out and spoke in an old, musical voice. "Heir of the Forgotten Blood, the vault has recognized your signal. You are summoned." Jari blinked. "What?" The drone turned to Veen and scanned him. Suddenly the ground trembled. Stone cracked open beside them, revealing a hidden staircase deep underground. Veen looked at his mother. "It's calling me." Jari shook her head. "No, it's a trick, we run." But the drone replied again. "You run from enemies, not from your throne." At that moment, more Enforcer dropships roared in from the west. Dust exploded as they landed. Too many to fight, too late to run. Jari looked at the cave opening, then at her son. Veen gently took her hand. "Mom, I'm not scared." Jari's heart raced, but she nodded. "Then I'm not either." Together they stepped onto the staircase and disappeared underground, just as the Enforcers reached the canyon. Deep below the surface, the staircase led into a massive stone hall filled with glowing lights and symbols that danced across the walls. Machines awoke as they walked. Some floated, some turned. One even spoke in an old royal dialect. Jari recognized nothing, but Veen did. He walked ahead slowly, touching a large metallic arch with both hands. The room shook. Suddenly, the air filled with blue light. A holographic figure appeared, tall, regal, with glowing eyes. "To the one who carries the blood of the first flame, you are welcome." Jari stepped forward. "Who are you?" "I am the Vault Keeper. I have waited 3,000 years. Only the heir may enter. Only his presence can awaken us again." John's words came back to her now. "He's not just a survivor. He's the key." Tears fell from her eyes. "What does this mean for him?" "He will decide the fate of kingdoms. If he chooses peace, we will rebuild. If he chooses war, the stars will burn again." Jari looked down at her son, who now stood beneath a floating crown of light, and Veen looked back at her. "I just want to keep you safe, Mom." Jari smiled. "Then that is the choice of a true king." Outside, the Enforcers prepared to fire into the canyon, but before a single shot could be launched, the ground cracked, and a beam of golden energy shot up into the sky. The vault was awakening, And across the stars, forgotten machines, old loyal ships, and buried relics lit up. One signal, one child. And it had all started with a piece of bread and a human who chose kindness.